Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to the Commanders. This is the beta patch 2.3 for Elite Dangerous. Now, a bit of an unusual perspective here. What I want to look at in this video, and I'm probably going to crash my ass, but just trying to get it out of the docking hatch there. Is it going to go? And yeah, we're out. What I'm looking at here in this video is the new camera suite. Sorry there, concentrating. Now, the camera suite is well, a very powerful function. It's probably one of the best camera systems in any game, or one of the better ones I have seen is in Black Desert, and I think this surpasses that by many orders of magnitude. Now you can see there is a graphical glitch over here for some reason, a big black square in space. I'm out here in Colonia. This is on my old original account near Jack Station. It's a little bit strange looking, but I guess we're just going to have to ignore that for this video. So then, when you log into the game and you want to look at the camera suite, you'll find that it doesn't actually work, and this is because there's no bindings set. So if you go into controls here, you've got all of the menus here for every element of the game, and I do believe that somewhere amongst one of these is the option to toggle the camera suite on, which is left control, left alt and space, or control alt space. That always enabled the debug camera in the previous versions of the game, and I'm just going to put C on there just to make that a little bit easier for the moment, and I'll bind it to my HOTAS a little bit later on. So down to the bottom we've got a number of options here. We've got the camera suite, and you can choose here. All of these you'll find have no bindings at all. This is the very important thing I want to point out. I've actually put bindings here. So you'll find that the camera suite and the free camera doesn't work at all, and that's because there's no bindings. And I spent a good hour to hour and a half yesterday setting all these bindings. It's a bit of a nuisance, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to recommend what sort of bindings you do use, but I can go through some of them and explain to you what they are, and we'd go through that in a little while. But without all of these you won't be able to use the functions at all. So the most important one is the one you saw up here. That's in Flight Miscellaneous. So by default it's Control Alt Space to get into the camera suite, or C if you bind C or any other key. And then you've got the camera suite. Here you'll want this. You need to bind a previous camera and next camera option. And of course, one of the most important ones is the ability to enter the free camera, and I'll explain what that's all about in just a bit. And if you want, you can set up some camera numbers there. And then the free camera, which is the mode that allows you to operate the camera independently of your ship, you'll need to put some bindings in there as well. And we'll come back to that in a bit, just as I mentioned. So let's get back to the game and let's have a look at our ship here. And we're facing Colonia. We're facing the dark black void, which is the hole in the nebula around us for some reason. And I want to go into the free cam mode. So I'm going to bring my ship to a standstill for a moment. I'm going to zero throttle, and I'm going to press the new C key, or Control Alt Space. And now what we've got here, down the bottom, you can see the text. It says Joy Point of View 1 left. So what that's saying there, that text is overlapping a bit. But in between the brackets, you can see Ship B, and that's ship back. That's the back camera, and there's the ship front camera. I'm toggling between them using the keys that you could see were bound just now. And you actually get, this is the co-pilot seat. This is a view of my commander. I haven't actually done anything with this character in the Hollow Me yet. And you've got various views in the cockpit as you cycle around the camera there. And I believe this is the left view of your ship, and this is the right. Oh no, we're back to the back and front. So I don't know what this one is because I can't read the text there, unfortunately. It's overlapping. So we go to the front view. Again, you can either bind these to your F keys or whatever other keys you want, and you can then choose the key independently, or you can cycle through the keys. And once here, well, as long as you've bound all the controls, well, you won't have to bind the controls here actually. You'll find that your camera actually does work. If you pitch your ship, you find the camera will also pitch. And this is because right now we're controlling the ship and not the camera. So if I throttle up, we'll see we start moving forward. So in this mode, we're not in free cam yet. You can see the free camera has an option. It's bound to Joy 3 on my computer here. But by default you go straight into the cameras that are attached to your ship, and this enables you to simply pilot your ship whilst looking through one of the many cameras. And we can cycle through the camera system here. We're now in the co-pilot seat, the camera facing the pilot himself, and one of the other views. So we can still pilot the ship from this view. And we're mounted up the back of the cockpit here. So it's kind of a top angled view, that. And here we are at the front, about to crash into Jacques Station, unfortunately. So that's one thing that you've got to watch, and watch where you're flying when you're using the camera system, because you're going to cause yourself a lot of trouble. And you can do everything you want to do here. I'm now using my vertical thrusters to simply move my ship on the downward axis. And I can keep doing that and pitch up. Use a little bit of yaw, and we'll cycle around the station here. Now you'll notice the HUD there. You can actually hide the HUD. There's a key you can bind that to. I've got that bound to one of the keys on my joystick. That is now hid. And then I'll fly straight back through the station ring again. Now the angle of the camera is slightly offset to your ship. It's not actually right on the nose of your ship. It's to the front and angled up a little bit. And you can notice that by the dust there that's flying by us. You can see we're not quite central. So that makes navigating a little bit difficult. So let's bring up the HUD here again. Let's bring the ship to a stop. There we go. And the thing you're really going to want now is the free cam. So use your key that you've bound to get into free cam. And again, you'll see nothing has changed, but a load more options have been brought up. And what this enables me to do now is, you can see, using the yaw there, using the pitch, using the roll, all this controls the camera and not the ship. The ship will stay where it is. I've zeroed the throttle so it will stay there. If I'd put a little bit of acceleration on the ship, then the ship would continue in its forward motion, or whatever motion I'd set it in, and we'd then be able to move the camera around the ship as we're doing that. So now from here you can see we've got a number of other options. We can lock the camera to the vehicle. So we'll offset the camera a little bit off there, say, and we lock that to the vehicle. And now we can control the ship again, but with the camera set to the angle that we determined a moment ago. So this gives you for some very nice, potentially action orientated camera movements, and it does of course let you fly your ship in third person from a perspective that best suits you, and you've got to watch things like that. Not the best of piloting there. So let's bring the ship to a stop again. So to come out of that view, simply press lock to ship again, and it will unlock the camera. And we can go back into that again for just a moment, because there's something else I want to show you. We do have unlock camera rotation, if I can remember what the key is. Yeah, and what that does is allow you to turn your ship independently of the camera. So that's with the camera rotation unlocked, and then we can lock it, and the camera will then pivot with your ship. So basically the roll of the camera is linked to your ship. You can decouple it and move your ship independently of the camera there. And then again you lock it and it will lock on the perspective that you've chosen there. So again, we'll bring the ship to a stop here. We'll remove the we'll go back into free cam. We'll unlock the camera from the ship. What we can also do here is, let's zero the throttle. We've got to make sure we zero the throttle, and you can then lock the camera to the world. So let's get a bit of a nice perspective here. We'd come around, put the planet in the center of the view. We'll lock the camera there. Now what happens now is that the camera is locked on whatever you're looking at. So the camera stays static now, and then I can remote control my ship and fly it off to wherever I want to fly it off to. In this case, let's fly it off towards the planet there. Of course it's not going to get there because we're going far too slow to do that. But we can give the illusion that we're flying towards a planet. Now there is a maximum distance of 3,000 kilometers, or 3,000 meters rather. And you can see what's happening now is that our camera, I believe, is being dragged along with the ship because we've reached that maximum distance. And again, if we lock to ship here, lock the camera to the vehicle, you'll see the camera will now lock at this particular distance. You can hear some strange ticking there, not sure what that's about. It's probably because we're a bit further away from the ship than we would normally be. So let's see if we can bring the camera back, the ship back towards the camera again. Might be a little bit fiddly to do that, because obviously when the ship's coming towards you, everything's reversed. And you've got full throttle control and all of that. And you can deploy your weapons as well from here. And here it comes with my ASP. Passing straight over the camera. And let's reset the cameras again. So we're back where we were. We need to enter the free cam again. Every time you move the camera, unfortunately, it'll always lock back to ship control mode. You have to enter free cam mode yet again every time. The ship, unfortunately, or the camera suite, doesn't remember any of your camera settings. So I think that pretty much covers everything. So effectively, let's just summarize that. We'll go back inside the ship here. We'll zero the throttle. Right, so you use your keybinds to go outside to the external camera view, which by default will take you to the camera that's locked to the ship. You can control your ship from this perspective. That's one camera function. The other camera function is to go into free camera mode, which enables you to rotate or position your camera anywhere you like. But your ship, you have no control over your ship when you're doing this. Let's go back to this movement again for a minute, back to the default one, back to free cam, and you'll find that now, because I've set my ship in motion, you can use the free cam and your ship will carry on its previous course. Nice for some little flybys here. So that's two camera settings. You've got the camera from when you're controlling your ship, the default one, and then the free cam. The third is locking the camera to your vehicle. There's two subsets here. You've got the rotation and the unlocked rotation. So that's three camera modes. And the fourth is locking the camera to the world. So four camera settings, and some of them which you can see we can lock to the camera here. Some of them have subsets. So basically that's all I can really show you here, because it's all about experimentation. Just go through the various different camera modes and see what you can achieve. Very, very, very powerful camera system. Now, one other thing I do want to show you before we take a quick look at the keybinds. And let's get back inside the ship. Now, my head look keeps moving me around. That's my Toby 4C, which I've got enabled at the moment. You can't use that during the external cams, but obviously it's enabled every time I get back in the ship again. What I want to do is try and show you the depth of field and the focus depth camera functions. Now they work best with the actually what we do is we go inside and dock. Right, now you'll notice something there. The stations always say docking permission granted, whereas all the ships, the mega ships, say boarding permission. So it's rather interesting to hear Jacques Station saying boarding permission, because that means the game classifies Jacques Station as a mega ship rather than a station. So who knows, chances are it may end up moving again at some point. Let's get docked, and from in there I can show you the depth of field and camera focus functions. They're not so good out in space really to demonstrate, and I'll show you why that is in just a moment. And it looks like we get the landing pad that's right near the entrance, the one I dislike the most. There we go, nearly down. Right, we go back into the external camera mode again here, and by default again the camera is bound to your ship. As we're docked, we've got no control anywhere at all, so I'm using my joystick here, pitching it, rolling it, using the lateral and vertical thrusters, and we've got nothing. And that's simply because by default you're controlling your ship, not the camera. Remember, go into free cam mode. As soon as we're in free cam mode, we've got free control of the camera. And I will show you something else in here. You can bind a speed to the camera movement, so we can slow the camera right down with the toggle, and we can accelerate the camera right up. Again, because of the distance you can travel away from your ship, you can get some fantastic perspectives and look at things you previously wouldn't have been able to see. So there we are, my ship's right over there. Right, so what I want to show you is the depth of field focus. So let's slow down, get our camera nicely positioned here, and we come to a stop. Now, I have found that this does lag the computer up a bit, so there might be a slight cut here in the video, because this does seem to take a lot of quite a performance hit. So you'll notice that on the left hand side of the camera controls there on the HUD, there's a zoom function, and I can't remember what key I set to zoom, but you can actually zoom. I don't think I've got that set. It does say I have. Oh, there we go. It's on the hat. So you can zoom in. That's nice for in space, but the zoom is relatively small, so you'll find that most useful when you're parked up or when you're focusing on your character, your avatar. The other thing just below that, you can see the zoom or depth of field toggle. So we press the key I've got bound there, and now what will happen is that the zoom bind actually changes to a depth of field bind instead. Or rather, they're separate key binds. So you can see over the right hand side, I can set the blur. Let's turn that back down. We can set that to nothing. We can set it up quite high. And we've then got our focus, which is on the left. And we use other keys to set the focus. So we can focus on the cockpit of the ship there. You can see my pilot just about sitting there. Let's put a bit more blur on. Let's try and focus on that. And you can see the problem here is that you're fairly limited to the distance to which you can focus on. And if you've ever done any photography, you'll notice that this is basically your f-stop. And we might need to do a bit of zoom for this to work how I want it to work. So let's see if we can focus on that. Again, as I said, this is best for inside your ship really, but you can, as you notice here, you can use it on your ship as well. Nice focus effect on the cockpit there with the pilot. Let's get rid of the HUD, and that would make for a fairly decent screenshot. Not perfect by any means. Let's see if we can bring that in focus again using the focus keybinds, and you can see the background is completely out of focus, so we can take a little screenshot on that if we so wanted. In fact, I will, and maybe I'll use that as a thumbnail for this video. Right, so let's cycle through the other cameras. If I can remember what that key was. Let's go back inside again. Right. So there we are on our avatar, on our pilot. You've got no control over the camera by default. Remember to go into free cam mode. And in here, you can then reposition your camera a little bit. You haven't got a massive amount of control over your camera, unfortunately, from here. But we can have a little bit of a look here. And again, nice for some cinematic shots. Nice for some screenshots. And again, if we want, we can use our depth of field focus here. Blur the background out to a greater or lesser extent. And then focus on wherever we want to focus on. So in this case, it'll either be the pilot, which will come into focus soon, or we can focus on the background. You can see you focus on the background rather than the pilot. And that's quite nice if you want to look at what's outside the ship. Not perfectly set there, but you get the gist. And if we want, we can focus back on whoever's closer to us. So it's focusing on in meters. We want just a few feet there, so probably about half a meter, I'd imagine, or maybe 1 meter. And there we've got a fantastic portrait type shot for our pilot in his regular get-up without the Hollow Me avatar creation. So there we go. That essentially then is the basic functionality of the camera. Very, very powerful camera system. And I'll do another tutorial on this later on to give you some tips and hints on getting cinematic shots and camera flybys and things like that. For now, we're just looking at camera functionality. So very quickly, let's have a look at the keybinds again. So go into your controls, go into your free camera. Very, very important stuff here. You can toggle HUD, you can toggle speed. This is what I showed you, where you can move the camera at slower or faster speeds. I've used the faster speed to get up to the back of the station, if you remember. You've got the zoom in and zoom out. So neither of these four to do with the velocity of the camera. You can move the camera independently. You can fly it like a ship, and you do that with the throttle axis or whatever key you would want to bind to your throttle. I use the same one as I do when binding the throttle from a ship. I've got HOTAS here and set to full range. So they're all separate. Effectively, you might think they do similar things, but they're very, very different. Changes the camera speed, allows you to zoom in or out on your focused object, and this moves the camera, the speed of the camera forward or backwards. Or you can set them to keybinds, I guess, here, forward or backwards. So then we've got the lateral thrusts. You can have these on an axis if you've got enough axes on your setup to do that. I unfortunately don't have at the moment, but you can then set them to buttons instead if you want. Up and down, they're your vertical thrusters. So basically, look at this, look at the controls here. They're free camera in terms of the settings you'd use to fly your ship. You've got your pitch axis. You've got the mouse pitch if you want to use that. I don't use that. You've got your yaw axis. Roll axis. So again, exactly like flying a ship. And here, you've got toggle rotation. You remember the key I used to separate or decouple the camera from the ship, so I could move and rotate the camera independently from the ship, or rather the ship independently from the camera even. You can lock to the vehicle. You can lock to the world. You remember that when I did the big flyby or flow off towards the ringed planet. This one allows you to do some third-person perspective control of your ship. And the all-important one is the exit, the free camera. And if you so want, you've got the zoom and depth of field toggle, where you can increase or decrease the blur and then focus or increase the focal distance as well. So, I hope that helps. This is by no means a tutorial of any type. It's basically a run-through, an explanation of the systems. I haven't got a full grasp of the whole system yet to do a tutorial. That will be something that will come a bit later, but I did say I'll do a run-through of how this all works. And considering Frontier have left no keybinds in this at all, and their little instructions over here on the right are not much help, there's nothing really for people to be getting on with, nothing in terms of helping them, so it's not very good for that. Like I say, it took me about an hour and a half to actually figure all of this out, so I hope this video does help you a bit, and I'll be back later on with some more videos from the 2.3 beta, and at a later date I'll be back with a tutorial for the whole camera suite. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.